Bird, can you explain the Amos Miller case in the USDA role? So, Amos Miller, the persecution of Amish farmer Amos Miller, for those that may not know, Amos Miller is a fifth-generation Amish farmer from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, the heart of Amish country in this country. The movie Witness depicts the Amish lifestyle and values in that region. Overstates a little bit their approach to guns, but that's all. He uses the highest and best methods known, gets the best sources of food, and makes sure they're done in the best way to create the safest and most delicious food on the planet. He has given and delivered millions of food products to tens of thousands of Americans over more than a quarter century. In that time frame, not one customer has ever complained about the quality of Amos Miller's food, the safety of Amos Miller's food, or the labeling on Amos Miller's food. Tens of thousands of people, millions of food products, not one single complaint ever. Instead, he has been subject for the last decade plus to continued and constant harassment on behalf of the corrupt regulators and administrators who are in bed with Big Ag. These are the big food companies, many of whom hired former tobacco scientists to contaminate our food supply to try to make it as addictive as possible. And our ultra-processed foods made it ultra cheap, also made it ultra bad for our public health, is literally killing us off at a level that is reducing our life expectancy in ways we have never seen in the modern era. The life expectancy is supposed to keep growing with the improvement of life standards of quality of medical care and the like. Instead, it's going down, largely because of our big food, big pharma connection, many of whom have overlapping economic interests like the Bill Gateses of the world. Amos Miller is providing an Amish exit ramp from the big food, big pharma control grid. The Amish as a whole represent a control group outside of the controlled, because unlike the rest of us, the Amish are not involved in big tech, not involved in big pharma, not involved in big food, not involved in big media or any aspect of it in terms of culture, in terms of news, in terms of information, in terms of any of it. In terms of social addiction and psychological harm, as has been documented on young girls from the growth of Instagram and the like. Doesn't happen in the Amish world because they opt out of all of it. They are a threat to the Bill Gateses of the world, who sits at the center of that dystopian control grid of big food, big pharma, big media, and big tech. And because of that, because of Amos Miller being the most successful at offering this Amish exit ramp from the Bill Gates controlled dystopian control grid, he became a risk to the Gateses of the world, and they unleashed their allies and the regulatory agencies against him, even though, again, not one complaint about the quality or security or safety of his food ever by anybody, anytime, despite millions of food products to tens of thousands of Americans over 25 years. So the state of Pennsylvania wanted to go after him, but they didn't have any grounds to do so. They put him under all kinds of secret surveillance. This was disclosed through Open Records Act requests, sunshine laws, under Pennsylvania's version of the Freedom of Information Act. They were internally joking amongst each other, including corrupt NGOs of this kind that the Doge has exposed on a national scale and international scale at the State Department and the like, with USAID and other rogue agencies of that kind. Same thing is happening at the state level. We have the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture in bed with certain agriculture departments at Penn State University, all of whom are being funded directly, indirectly, either before or after, by big food companies who see the Amish community itself as a threat to their control grid of the Bill Gates dystopian control grid, but also an economic threat to their future monopoly, which is already 98% of our food supply. We went from almost all of our food being provided by local farmers that we know using organic and true methods that have been tested over centuries to 98% of our food being controlled by 3 or 4 big companies that ultra process the food, putting a bunch of crap in it we would never otherwise have eaten any time in our history and being stuck in our food shelves. And they're enraged that there's 2% of small farmers still breaking through. They want there to be no alternative to their control grid. Having a control group like the Amish or those accessing Amish benefits would undermine their monopolistic power and maybe expose their corruption and criminality and what they've been doing to us as a population for the better part of a half century with their perverted, distorted food pyramid that has Fruit Loops towards the top. So because of that, they've gone on harassment. The state requested the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration to get involved. FDA chose to stay out of it because of the issues of the FDA banning raw milk, even though they were given no congressional authority to ban raw milk. Let me tell you what raw milk is. It's fresh milk. It's fresh milk. It's natural milk. It's uncontaminated, untainted milk. It's not pasteurized milk. All its good proteins haven't been taken away from it by converting it from natural milk to unnatural milk. But the FDA decided out of the blue, in order to favor the big dairy manufacturers, they were going to run these small farmers out of business by banning raw milk from being transported over interstate lines, even though that was in a constitutional violation, as various people brought at the time it was sued, and the FDA promised not to really enforce it, but they have behind the scenes. After the FDA passed on getting into a direct legal conflict with Amos Miller, the USDA took it up. The USDA took it up first, beginning the investigation under the Obama administration, continued it under that lard-ass, that boss hog wannabe, that boss hog but retarded Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, under President Trump. He did nothing to stop the harassment of Amos Miller by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. After we settled with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture then raided Amos Miller, shut down his farm for months, destroyed all of his good food, and tried to shut him down permanently, which they are still trying to do. We have been successful at preventing it so far by winning in the trial court and then winning again at the Commonwealth Court, and then the state didn't even try to go to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. But they are still harassing him, demanding invasive discovery, demanding he sit for extended days of deposition time, all with the goal and objective to shut him down. Despite the fact that PDA is still active, despite the fact that the Amish organized and voted at record rates to such a degree that Food Safety News publicly reported that the Amish single-handedly guaranteed President Trump's reelection because of their extraordinary voter participation at unprecedented rates in the state of Pennsylvania. So it was assumed was that once Trump got into power, the U.S. Department of Agriculture would publicly announce no more federal harassment of Amos Miller, revoke the FDA rule banning raw milk across state lines, and publicly oppose the state of Pennsylvania constantly harassing him. The new Attorney General, Republican-elected Attorney General, promised to fix this case, but has refused to do anything to take corrective action. So the current concern is the USDA should publicly announce the end of all cases against Amos Miller, publicly announce they will not pursue Amos Miller, publicly announce and denounce the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture for continuing to harass Amos Miller. To date, they have been slow to act on those three areas, and that's where Brooke Rollins is still complicit in not delivering for the Trump coalition, especially Amish farmers who want the state and federal government off their back. That's the issue with Amos Miller as it currently stands. From